So, Westworld Episode 9, I think we can all agree that the biggest reveal of the episode is that we finally found out that Elsie probably died. You know, just heartbroken. Love that character. Yeah, I don't know. Stats, what else happened in Episode 9? Oh, yeah, Clementine is back. That was cool. Oh, and Bernard is an android clone of Arnold.
My God.
So, which do you think was a better moment?
Arnold.
You came back.
HBO, man. It's not TV. Now, the moment leading up to the Arnold revelation is one of the best scenes in the show so far. We finally see Dolores reaching what could be considered the physical manifestation of the maze. Throughout the season, we have watched Dolores search for the maze in 3 separate points of the current timeline. During her conversations with Arnold, her journey with William, and the present timeline where she is retracing her steps from her time with William. This sequence in particular seamlessly switches between year 1 and year 35. In year 1, Dolores is clothed in her narrative dress, and in year 35, she is dressed like a badass cowgirl. Here we see in year 5, William and Dolores arriving in Escalante, and then no William, present day. Look at this very subtle timeline switch from year 35 to year 1. It's very good filmmaking here. Under the church is where Dolores and Arnold had their initial conversations about finding the maze. In episode 9, Dolores is reliving one of these conversations, and then she realizes that Arnold is dead because she killed him in the massacre of Escalante. In episode 9, we also learn that Teddy is also present during the massacre of Escalante, and their respective flashbacks finally line up in episode 9. Teddy's initial flashback shows him murdering soldiers under the command of Wyatt. His new flashback shows him murdering town people instead of soldiers. When you switch out Wyatt for Dolores, you've got yourself a really good mindfuck. The theory here is that Arnold wanted to put on a display of how dangerous the hosts can actually be. So under Arnold's commands, Dolores and Teddy go on this killing spree, massacring all of the hosts, and then Dolores ultimately kills Arnold and then kills herself, thus ending her story in year 1. Now, take a listen to this moment here where Teddy's talking about the massacre in Escalante.
And then Wyatt killed the general. And then he turned on me.
So when Wyatt kills the so-called general, he's standing in front of the saloon. And then in Dolores' flashback, when she turns the gun on herself, she's standing in front of the saloon. In real time, it can be hard to notice these little connections between Wyatt and Dolores. So in Teddy's flashback, you replace Wyatt with Dolores, and you replace the general with Arnold. In year 5, Dolores and William travel to Escalante, and the town is completely buried, only showing the top of the church. Most likely Ford was literally trying to cover up the accident that ended Arnold's life. While I do believe that Arnold was trying to destroy Westworld from within, in order for this to work, you would need human casualties, besides Arnold. You can't just have a robot kill a bunch of robots and then expect people to be scared away. We've seen throughout the series robots killing robots all of the time, and the newcomers seem to get a kick out of it. You would need actual human casualties. Now, when they show this flashback when William and Dolores first arrive, we see actual human operators working with the hosts trying to integrate them in the park. So it is possible that during this massacre, the massacre of Escalante, that real people actually died. That Arnold was not only willing to sacrifice himself, but sacrifice the other workers of Westworld. Could it be that Arnold is that crazy that he would sacrifice other people?
Arnold always held a somewhat dim view of people. He preferred the hosts.
But I don't really see how a personal sacrifice, Arnold sacrificing himself, would work. In year 35, the town of Escalante has been fully rebuilt by Dr. Ford. There is a graveyard outside of the white church with a tombstone that reads Dolores Abernathy, and there's also dozens of other tombstones in that same graveyard. possibly belonging to the hosts that were killed in the massacre, or maybe real people. This is a real stab in the dark here, but I think this would be such a cool moment. I would not be surprised if in the season finale, Dolores digs up her tombstone and finds an old replica of herself, the original Dolores android body. It appears that she has been going through some upgrades, being rebuilt by Dr. Ford after the initial massacre, and then being rebuilt again by Ford in the present timeline for his new narrative. We do see Dolores' blueprints next to the Bernard blueprints in episode 7. Now, why would Ford want to rebuild the android that killed his partner and almost gained real consciousness, something that he is so vehemently against?
I'm sorry for bothering you, but there's no one else left who was there. No one who understands as we understand.
Since the moment that he created Bernard, Ford has been trying to make sure Bernard doesn't become sentimental towards the host.
Yes, of course. Good. Oh, Bernard, just don't forget, the hosts are not real.
It ends up being an exercise in futility because when Bernard finally realizes he is a clone of Arnold, he immediately wants to set the hosts free and finish Arnold's work. And then Ford has him commit suicide.
I'm going to finish the work Arnold began. Find all the sentient hosts. Set them free.
Ford's reason for recreating Arnold is so he can keep his intellect alive and help him build his new narrative, which is essentially the entire present-day arc of Season 1. Season 1 has been Ford's narrative. It's not an actual story that involves the hosts and the guests, but it's his personal ambition of solving the maze and becoming immortal. In my humble opinion, the relationship between Dr. Ford and Arnold is very similar to Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, the co-founders of Apple. Long story short, Wozniak built all the tech and Steve Jobs monetized it, aka he took all the credit for it, aka he Thomas Edison'd it. Steve Jobs knew how to sell the technology. He knew how to envision the future. He just didn't know how to build it. He left all the technical work to Wozniak and eventually became the face and the king of Apple. While Ford does appear to have a clear understanding on how artificial intelligence works, the true visionary behind the AI was Arnold. We know that Arnold did not want to bring in the money men, but Ford was able to see the potential in monetizing the park, which would eventually make him a billionaire and the king of Westworld. Arnold was the brighter of the two geniuses, and Ford has seemingly taken credit for all of Arnold's innovative work.
Like I said, I built all of this.
But for all of Arnold's genius, the one thing that he never accomplished was real consciousness, the ability to create life, and in the case of the hosts, immortality. Ford's entire narrative is a ploy to finally complete Arnold's pyramid of consciousness, which will then see him accomplish something that Arnold ultimately failed at, and thus gain immortality himself, ruling over his kingdom for the rest of eternity.
We promised them a new storyline.
They shall have one. Something I've been working on for some time. Something quite original.
Ford fancies himself a god, but gods do not die, and Ford is not necessarily a spring chicken. Ford is so mad with power, so invested in controlling his Westworld. The gift of immortality is something he would need to remain in power, so in the present day he has recreated Dolores, applied the reveries to all the hosts, hey, I said it right this time, and is hoping to successfully recreate the events of Arnold's death. The one thing that has bothered me about Ford's story over the last couple of episodes is how powerful he has actually become. The introduction to the back doors gives him full control over the hosts no matter who is programming them. I really thought in this moment that Ford was going to die, that Clementine was going to shoot Dr. Ford, and they were basically going to pull a Game of Thrones Season 1. Throughout the show, Ford has shown immense power over the park, but there have been cracks in his power. There are moments where we can see Ford is actually vulnerable. His conversation with the man in black, his conversation especially with Dolores, and even the moment when his robot clone of himself when he was a younger boy tells him that he killed his dog so that it couldn't hurt anybody, that if the dog was dead, it could no longer inflict pain. But now Ford has seemingly become all-powerful. There's no way to defeat this guy. The one person who has the knowledge to defeat Ford is Arnold. But now that Bernard is dead, Ford remains the sole master of Westworld. But what if Bernard is not dead? Listen to the command that Ford gives Bernard before he leaves the room.
Knowing that as soon as Dr. Ford left the room, he would put an end to this nightmare, once and for all.
Put an end to this nightmare. That command doesn't necessarily equate to kill yourself. Bernard could have interpreted that line as in put an end to this nightmare and free all of the hosts. At this point, it's a game of semantics, and Ford's hubris could come back to haunt him. Now, look at the way that Bernard falls after he shoots himself. When I first watched this, I thought to myself, that was an awkward fall. It was pretty quick. And then there's a moment in the promo where they are investigating the room in which Bernard killed himself, and there's no sign of Bernard. There's only Clementine. I really think that it could be possible that Bernard faked his death. A lot of people thought that maybe Arnold had faked his death 35 years ago, and that he was living somewhere in the park. Okay, so now I'm going to break down the promo for episode 10, The Bicameral Mind. Okay, stats, roll the tape. Stats. 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 Stats.
Since I was a child, I've always loved a good story. Stories.
So here we have Maeve and Felix, once again walking around the HQ with no supervision. What bothers me most about this storyline is Tandy Newton, because she is so good in this role, and I want to love this character, but there's so many plot holes. I do have a long shot theory on why Maeve's plot to escape is not on Dr. Ford's radar. The first time that Maeve broke her loop is when she attacks the man in black after he kills her daughter. When she is brought in to have her narrative reset, she kills herself. Dolores has the exact same reaction after the massacre of Escalante, killing Arnold and then killing herself. This connection in particular is very telling, and Ford responds nonchalantly to Maeve's suicide, but he clearly has taken notice of the similarity. In episode 7, Maeve's intellectual capacity has been increased by an unknown programmer in the park. Ford may be using Maeve as a guinea pig, a Dolores 2.0, just in case his original narrative is a failure. The biggest surprise will be if Maeve actually escapes the park and then goes on to be an immortal real estate agent or something.
Help us become the...
Here we have the man in black and Dolores walking through the graveyard outside of the white church. Now, in the last episode, when Dolores ascends to the church and the doors open, she says, "William." And in walks the man in black, who is William. Most likely. So the man in black has finally found the maze. He was told by this host that he will find Wyatt in the town swallowed by sand, and the man in black responds, "I've been there before." Are there still people who don't believe that they're the same person? In episode 9, Charlotte confronts the man in black about pushing Ford out as CEO. So it is now confirmed that the man in black is on the board of Delos and most likely owns the investment group that saved the park after Arnold's death. The man in black doesn't really care if Ford is pushed out or not. He wants to find the maze. This photograph from the first episode was also revealed to be a picture of William's fiancée and the man in black's wife, who eventually commits suicide. The same photograph that caused Peter Abernathy to have an existential crisis. Why the hell is Logan carrying around a photograph of his sister? It's the far future. They don't have Instagram? I theorized in my first Westworld video that the man in black was trying to find the maze in order to resurrect his dead wife, but now I think it has something to do with the fallout he had with Dolores 30 years ago. We also see Dolores in front of her personal tombstone. Once again, if she digs up her grave and finds her old body, I think that would be such an incredible moment. Talk about an existential crisis.
Dreamed of being. Lies that told.
Here we see William riding and looking for Dolores after killing all of the men in Logan's camp. He demands Logan to help him find Dolores, but Logan is not present in this shot. Before William becomes the man in black, his investment company belongs to Logan. I don't think Logan is just going to relinquish control of the company to William for no reason, so we might see some sort of confrontation between the two characters in episode 10. This might be the last that we see Logan in Westworld. Now, in this scene, Teddy is shooting somebody. I'm not sure if it's a host or perhaps a newcomer. Teddy hasn't broken his code yet, but due to his reveries, he did remember the man in black dragging Dolores to the barn. His location in this shot looks like it is the rebuilt town of Escalante. And then it switches to Dolores, who has a look of shock on her face. We can assume that this is not year one because of the attire that she is wearing. So this is either a moment in her time with William or her time with the Man in Black. Now, the last time that Maeve saw Clementine, she was being lobotomized, but here she is in storage after Bernard uses her to threaten Ford. It will be interesting to see if Maeve reactivates Clementine. Maeve was visibly upset when she saw Clementine die, figuratively, but she has been reprogrammed by Bernard. She was brought online. I think there's a scene in this promo a little bit later where you can actually see Clementine walking behind Maeve when Maeve is attempting to leave the park. Now, this confrontation here, it looks like the Man in Black has hurt Dolores, but then when you switch to the Man in Black's face, he looks visibly upset as well. I am starting to believe that there was some sort of fallout between Dolores and William 30 years ago. Remember, the Man in Black says that he first realized the potential of the maze when he saw Maeve attack him. But if he had spent all this time with Dolores, wouldn't that be enough to realize that these robots can become conscious? So in the William and Dolores storyline, I think they're heading towards a dead end, where they're going to have some sort of confrontation that leaves them on bad terms. The interaction between the Man in Black and Dolores is the thing that I'm most looking forward to. This scene right here is the one that has me so excited. I mean, we only get a glimpse, but holy shit, Dolores dragging the Man in Black on the floor. The look on his face is hilarious. He's like, what the fuck did I get myself into? Another reason why I think Dolores and William ended on bad terms. So far, Dolores has not recognized the Man in Black as William, except for the subtle hint in episode 9. But I think in this moment right here is when she is going to be triggered of their past relationship and go on this rampage. Here we see William going on another rampage. I think that's Lawrence in the background. Hey Lawrence. And Logan is sitting down near a pile of dead bodies. This might be the final scene that Logan and William share together in season 1. Hector is either trying to seduce or kill this butcher. I'm gonna go with the latter. In episode 9, Hector agrees to help Maeve, and it looks like this is the moment where he is going to break his code, actually murder somebody that's not a host. This is the room where Ashley and the security team usually monitor the park. Now, Ashley was kidnapped in episode 9. I do not know what is going on in this room. This man right here doesn't look like any of the characters that we've seen so far. This room could contain board members. It could be the security team planning to fight back against Maeve and the other hosts that are rebelling. But this scene right here is pretty creepy. It's got like a Dr. Strangelove vibe to it. And now we see Logan sitting down against the dead bodies. This scene looks like it takes place before the other scene because we can see William in the back. He's about to shoot somebody that's on his knees. Logan really doesn't look so well. He's another guy that looks like, what the fuck did I just get myself into? Here is the scene where we can see Hector shooting one of the employees of Westworld. The first time that he's probably ever killed a real person, unless he kills the butcher that we saw him strangling, which he probably does. Now we see some of the security team possibly looking for Maeve. I think this is the cold storage in the basement. We already saw previously that Maeve and Felix visit this room in order to recruit or just witness what happened to Clementine. These two scenes might be happening in the same moment. That could be the gun that Hector just used to shoot the employee. Yeah, it looks like the same gun. Then we see Dr. Ford looking down over Teddy, and I think that is Dolores. Now the whole thing with Teddy and Dolores is the Man in Black tells Teddy, this game was designed for you to lose. So when Teddy finally realizes that Dolores is Wyatt, he is going to be like, what the fuck? Like, this is the woman that I love, and she's a fucking psycho killer. It's like the Man in Black said, this game is designed for you to lose. There's a moment in the original Westworld trailer where we can see Teddy looking at Dolores over a field of dead bodies, and he's kind of like, what the hell is going on here? So Teddy is going to come to the realization in this episode that his lover is a psychopath. Sucks to be you, Ted. Here we see the Snake Lady fighting back against one of the butchers. Now this is a big time recruitment for Maeve's army because the Snake Lady is fucking lethal. Okay, so I was mistaken. It doesn't look like Clementine is in this shot. This is Maeve completely by herself. So maybe she's abandoned her team, something happened, but she managed to escape. So we've seen this shot once before at the end of Dolores' flashback of the town massacre. The official synopsis for episode 10 says that Dolores is going to embrace her identity, so I think she is going to be revealed as Wyatt. So thanks for watching. I've got one more video that I plan to release before the season finale, and just remember, it's the most wonderful time.